Hello there, Qckslvrslash here today, and I'm back in my Yamato. And this wasn't originally going to be a game I shared, or wasn't intending to, but just kind of the way it played out, I decided it was going to make it up onto the channel. And during this, I was definitely laughing a lot. A couple big blunders made by me and my division mates, and some pretty funny moments with the secondaries on this ship. So stick by and you'll see what I mean, as all the name tags drift further and further away from their ships. So one of the things you're going to notice pretty early here, there was some confusion in chat about A or C. One of the teammates recommended A. They went A, question mark. And the Great Killer had said A, and then wrote a bunch of other text. And I think a couple of the ships right off the bat didn't read the rest of the comments, so they thought he meant, yeah, let's go A. Or in fact, he was going, A? Are you crazy? With this many DDs, you don't go to A. So that was kind of mistake one, and I mean, it looks like the team's got the message, other than one lonely cruiser who's insisting on driving up there alone, and I don't get players that do that. When you see your team isn't going somewhere, why do you go there alone? You're just gonna wind up facing down against more enemies than you can kill. And coming up, you're gonna see the first big issue. You'll notice the Great Killer and I are kind of staggered. And normally this isn't an issue. And part of the reason is because if there's torpedoes, I would typically turn in towards them. I feel turning in is always the better solution unless your rudder is already hard over for some other reason. Turning out just carries you through the torpedo path longer. So when these torpedoes get spotted, it takes me a few moments to kind of notice that the Great Killer is turning out. And I think he already was, and that was the big issue. And at this point in comms, it's like, oh god, I had touched left for a bit, and then by the time the rudder gets back and is coming over to the right, it's gonna be too late. As Montana smashes into me, and at this point, he's gonna be eating some damage. Four torpedoes for like 80,000 points of his health. And I get away basically with some scrapes on my paint. Now, definitely a little unfortunate. And it really came down to communication on our part. We could have avoided that. And, these kind of things happen. The Great Killer was pretty gracious, kind of laughing it off, like not really too upset about it, because I know some people would be absolutely furious. Maybe not a division mate, but like if you're in a random battle and that had happened and that was just a random guy on the team, I have a hard time seeing them not being mad. They'd blame it on the other person, and ultimately it just comes down to everybody's fault. And that's something that happens a lot in this game, and I feel everybody lives in a vacuum. Like, when two ships ram into one another, yes, sometimes one person is definitely at fault. They turned hard into the other. But most times, it's both people's fault. You're both responsible for having driven into one another. Back in my Navy days, like, understanding the rules for prevention of collision at sea, the kind of biggest caveat to any one of the rules is ultimately both ships are responsible. And when the boards are formed to investigate what happened, the maritime boards don't assign blame. They don't go, oh, 60% this person, 30% this person, like you would see in a car crash. All they try to do is figure out what happened and go, here's how we stop it from happening again. So maybe if more players applied that kind of mentality, like, okay, me and another ship T-boned. Why? Oh, because I didn't look before turning and I drove straight into him? Okay, well, I'll do a shoulder check from now on. And that applies to everything. Same with launching torpedoes. You know, ultimately, a lot of the fault falls on whoever threw the torpedoes in the water. But at the same time, that person can't expect someone else to magically turn 180 or do something that makes no sense to the gameplay. So it falls some part on the person who may be turned into allied torpedoes. And really all I'm saying is, you know, calm down a bit. It's a game. Shitty things happen sometimes. Kind of like the shitty thing that's about to happen to this Qckslvrslash who's sailing side on to me. I honestly aim a little far back. I get lucky, still do 12,000 damage, but aim wasn't perfect there. But you'll notice, Secondaries still peppering away, and I get a close quarter expert on a tier 10 battleship. And that's actually a first for me. I've had the Yamato Secondaries kill like low health destroyers and cruisers. I've never had them kill a battleship. That's only going to be the first thing they kill this battle. So right now, a quick look at the map should clearly indicate a problem. Only one of their ships is spotted down here near Charlie. They're probably not the only one. There's bound to be a destroyer or two. But they've got Bravo. They took out the Rune to the north. They're about to capture Alpha. And every single one of our ships is in this same clustered up ball. I'm turning hard around this iceberg because I'm really worried about torpedoes. It's giving the Iowa my side, not a good thing. He fires HE at me for some reason because tier 9 battleship in HE, right? I can't explain why that's happening so much, but I was turning because 2 destroyers were last spotted here, so reasonably I was expecting torpedoes down this channel, and there they are. And there's a kill. That was, once again, my secondaries. Granted, it was a fire my secondary started, but it was still my secondaries. So that's 2. As the Iowa gets finished off, there's their Shimikaze, more torpedoes in the water, and well, when you look at this game, things are actually in really good order. We may be down 2 caps, but we've taken out half their team and we've only lost a cruiser and destroyer to do it. The downside is most of what is left on their team is their destroyers, and that can be hard to overcome. Mostly because they always have that ability to just stay at range and stay undetected. And this is one of the few sections and places RPF becomes very useful. And I'm kind of getting tired of seeing it. The number of people moaning on the forums saying RPF has broken the game and they're not playing anymore. It hasn't changed much. And I think if you played the game and see RPF in use and try using it, it really doesn't give you that much information. Like, reasonably, you can deduce most of what it's going to tell you. And then the last bit, yeah, it's handy. But in a big situation like this, is it going to tell me anything I don't know? You know, I know most of their ships are there. There's a destroyer or 2 up here, and there's probably a destroyer or 2 down here. You know, if RPF were pointing in any of those broad general directions, it hasn't told me anything new as my secondaries get another kill. So, while yes, there are times that it's gonna give a ship an advantage. Like if you were all alone up here and, you know, the RPF is tracking and showing that something's about to come around behind you, maybe it gives you a half-second jump on a destroyer. But in a lot of the case, you'd have known that the DD was there anyways. So I don't feel it's that big an advantage. And you have to give up so much to have RPF. You know, it's a 4-point skill, which means you're giving up another 4-point skill or some 3-point, or like a 3-point and 1-point. Like, you're giving up more useful things, in my opinion. And ultimately, it is a balance. I personally feel it's not worth it, so I don't run it on anything. There are people who are going to feel it is worth it. And ultimately it comes down to personal choice. I'd rather have the other skills, and that's why I run them. But I really don't care when that little located beacon pops up. It's not something that goes, oh no, you're not spotted. They just have, he's from this cardinal point, this general 90-degree arc of the map. There's someone over there. And it only does it for the closest person to them. So, not that big a thing. And then, on the flip side, when you are in a situation near the end of the game, or even near the start, as me and that Izumo trade massive volleys, if you have 3 people on your map, and this guy is the one who has the little located beacon, he knows that unspotted, or that enemy is closest to him. You know it's not down here or here. And based on when that located tag switches over, you can actually deduce where the enemy ship is. So it kind of, it works back against the person who has it if they're running it. And it tells you the same thing right at the start. If you go charging off into A, as a DD or something, or any cap, and you become the one that's located, the person running it's closest to you. So kind of drawing concentric circles from all the ships on your team in your head, you can kind of work out where that person has to be and where they can't be, simply because you're the individual located. So for those who, feel it's completely broken, give it a try. It's still super cheap to retrain your captains. Throw it on a ship, spend the 13 gold or whatever, retrain your captain, throw it on, play a game or two, form an actual opinion on how it works and whether or not you think it's that useful, and then, you can step away from the game. But I'm just tired of people seeing the, oh, they changed this, I quit. They're always going to be changing things. The game is still growing. They look at the numbers, they go, oh, this might be overpowered. Oh, this might be underpowered. So they change the stats a little to try to make it as balanced for everybody as possible, not the few. And ultimately, the game's still fun for me. I play all classes of ships from every nation, and I have my favorites, but at the same time, there's none that I'm like, oh, I'm not going to go get in that. There's a ship or two on the grind up that I definitely hated, but that's always going to exist in a game like this. It existed in tanks. Like the DW2 at the time had to be my most hated tank. That thing was awful, but I drove through it to get to the Tiger P, which the Tiger P was hit or miss sometimes. Back onto RPF, this is a situation where it'd be pretty awesome to have. You can see me looking around a lot, and it's because this one person has said they're near me, like I kind of know where they are, so I was trying to figure out where they were. I couldn't find their name tag, but because one person had RPF, we kind of know they're up here, so we turn and drive. Now, does this moment break the game? No. The game's over. 2 caps to 1. We've got 880 points. There's 5 minutes left. A single destroyer isn't taking all of us down. And that's just the reality. It just gives us the opportunity in these last minute situations to try and hunt down the guy running away. Spoiler alert, we don't get them. So let's hop to the post-battle screen. And in the end, a very solid game for me. 500,000 credits, Confederate, 2 close quarter experts, but really 3 died to my secondaries because that Iowa was taken down by a fire lit by my secondaries. 149,000 damage and 4 kills. Kind of sad that my secondaries didn't manage to finish off that Fletcher or Shimakaze, pick up the Kraken almost entirely with secondary damage, but you can't win everyone. But just look at how many hits there are. 151. compared to the 28 with my main batteries. It seemed like every time I aimed at something, it was sunk by destroyer torpedoes. So you know how things can turn out, and only good for second on the team, though still very respectable amount of XP, and quite happy overall with this ship. You know, I'm getting around 20 games, 30 games in the Yamato now, and she has just been so much fun to drive. A big part of it is just those big guns seem to punch through everything, and you're almost always getting damage if you're aiming right. And that's a nice thing to have happen, because it sucks when you know, perfectly aimed shot it hits and you see a ricochet. And in this one, honestly, I didn't really have to do too much of the battleship roll. I only tanked 781,000 damage of potential damage fired at me, which is pretty minor. I've had, you know, cruiser games where it's double that. So pretty lucky this game. I just got to shoot things, the secondaries got to kill things, and despite some very questionable beginnings as me and a division mate collided into each other and then I rode him through a torpedo volley, well, things turned out well. And end of the day, took home 350,000 credits and a ton of experience that is still training this captain up, because he's not a 19 pointer yet. And I can't wait until he is, because it'll be so nice to just have another one contributing to that free experience pool that, you know, is able to train all your other captains. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed this. If you did, consider giving it a thumbs up or subscribing to the channel. And as always, I'm Qckslvrslash, and I'll have another one for you guys later, probably about 10 hours from now. I'm trying to kind of catch up on my schedule. I seem to be several hours off. Anyways, see you guys later.